Welcome to Campfire Stories.
Welcome back to the fire, friends. Tonight's Ottawa Valley legend is not one ghost but hundreds, and every one of them belonged to a young man, and every one of them died in the same cold, roaring way. To understand them, you have to understand the log drive, the most dangerous work the valley ever asked of its sons. And you have to understand the river.
The log drive. Marty, I have seen the old photographs, men standing on the floating logs. It always looked impossible to me. Tell me how it worked.
In the great days of the timber, Carol, the valley, cut its pine in the winter and stacked it on the frozen rivers, and in the spring, when the ice broke and the water came up wild and freezing, they sent the logs downriver to the mills. Millions of logs, filling the Ottawa and every tributary from bank to bank. And riding those logs, leaping from one to the next as they rolled and plunged in the current, were the river drivers. Draveurs, the French called them. River pigs, they called themselves. Young men, most of them agile as cats, with spiked boots and a long pole, whose job was to keep the logs moving and to break up the jams. And it was, Carol, just about the deadliest job in the country.
Riding the logs down a flooded river in the spring. Marty, one slip and you are in freezing water under a moving carpet of timber. There is no getting out of that.
There is not, Carol, and that is exactly how so many of them died. The great terror was the log jam. When the logs piled up and locked together against a narrows or a rock, they could build into a mountain of timber, holding back the whole weight of the river behind it. And someone had to climb out onto that groaning, straining jam and find the one key log holding it all and cut it free. And when it went, Carol, it went all at once. A whole spring flood of logs suddenly loosed, and the man who cut it had about 2 seconds to run for the bank across the rolling logs before the river took him.
2 seconds. Marty, that is not a job. That is a coin toss with your life. And if he lost...
If he lost, Carol, the logs came down on him or the river pulled him under, and often there was nothing to bury. And when there was, the river drivers had a tradition that breaks my heart every time I think of it. When one of their own drowned on the drive, they buried him right there on the bank where he was lost, in the wild country, far from any churchyard or any family. And they marked the grave with his own spiked boots, hung on a wooden cross, or sometimes just his boots set on a stump above the water, so that the next crews coming down would know a man had died there, and would take off their hats and step careful.
Oh, Marty. His boots on a cross by the river. That is the saddest and the most tender thing. So the whole length of the Ottawa is dotted with these lonely graves.
The whole length of it, Carol, and its tributaries too. Hundreds of them over the years. Young men from valley farms and Quebec villages, buried where the river killed them, with their boots for a headstone and the water they died in running past forever. And it is no wonder at all, Carol, that the valley came to believe the river was haunted. Because when you have lost that many young men to a stretch of water, that water is not just water anymore. It holds them.
And so the ghost stories began. What do people say they see, Marty, on the Ottawa?
They say, Carol, that on certain spring nights when the water is high and cold the way it was on the drives, you can hear them. The old drivers' songs faint, coming off the river where no one is singing. The thump and grind of logs where there are no more logs. Some have claimed to see a figure out on the water in the moonlight, a young man in spiked boots balanced on something that is not there, riding a log that rotted away 100 years ago, working a drive that ended before their grandparents were born. And the old people never found it frightening, exactly. More like company. The boys are still on the river, they would say. They never did come home.
They never did come home. Marty, that undoes me. Not a scary ghost, just a homesick one, still doing the job that killed him. Why do you think they stayed in the stories?
Because they died so young, Carol, and so far from home and so suddenly, with their whole lives ahead and their boots still on. And I think the valley could not bear to let them just be gone. So the stories kept them out on the water, forever young, forever skilled, forever riding the logs they loved and feared. It is a way of remembering Carol, dressed up as a haunting. Every one of those ghost songs on the Spring River is really a valley refusing to forget its boys. And when the timber trade ended, and the drive stopped, and the river went quiet, the old-timers said the saddest thing of all. They said, now even the ghosts have nothing to do.
Now even the ghosts have nothing to do. Oh, Marty, that is the loneliest ending yet. So we should remember them then, the river drivers.
We should, Carol, and that is the whole reason to tell this one at the fire. Somewhere out there tonight, along the Ottawa, there are still a few old crosses leaning in the brush, with the rusted remains of a young man's boots marking where the river took him in some long-gone spring. Nobody living knows his name, but we can know that he lived, and that he was brave past all sense, and that he died doing the hardest work the valley ever asked. Take off your hat for the river drivers, friends, and step careful by the spring water. They earned it. I'm Marty Shepherd.
And I'm Carol, and tonight I am listening for the songs on the water and holding those brave young men in my heart. Hold your own people close, and never let the river take them without a name to remember. Come back to the fire.